Here's the uncomfortable truth nobody wants to say out loud. Avoidant people aren't afraid of intimacy. They're afraid of being seen when they actually care. Let that land because the avoidant isn't cold. They're not broken. They're not heartless. They are highly self sufficient people who learned very early that needing others was unsafe. And here's the part that's going to piss some people off. Avoidants are often praised by society, rewarded even, for the very defense that are destroying their relationships. Now, today, I'm breaking down the avoidant attachment style from the inside out. I'm going to get into things like the brain science. Right? We'll talk about those chemicals. We'll talk about how early sort of instances created this problematic brain. The childhood conditioning, those very instances that did create those problems. Why avoidance seem high value at first. In fact, a lot of women see avoidance as sort of the gold standard until they date them. Why they sabotage intimacy when it gets real. I mean, when the things start getting hot and bothered, they're backing out. Now, why anxious partners get addicted to them? That's a fact. Anxious partners love the avoidant. Again, they don't love it once they're with them, but they're addicted. And most importantly, how to rebuild your life into a secure attachment without losing your independence or your edge. Guys, in the first 5 minutes, I'm giving you a checklist that will tell you without denial whether avoidance is ruining your dating life. Stay with me. This one is going to change lives. So let me go ahead and give you that deliverable that I just talked about. Let me give you that checklist, right? And if you recognize yourself in 5 or more of these, avoidance is likely your core pattern. Now remember, I'm not a therapist, right? I'm not an attachment style expert, although I do know a ton about the avoidance style because I have done a lot of research and I'm probably one of these people. But if you recognize yourself in any 5 of these, avoidance is your likely pattern. All right. Now, number 1, you lose attraction when someone becomes emotionally available. Number 2, you feel trapped when relationships deepen, even the healthy ones. You just feel like you can't get out, right? Number 3, you intellectualize emotions instead of feeling them. In other words, you're breaking down every time one of those little spikes of dopamine hits. You're trying to break it down logically. It's tiring. Number 4, you shut down or withdraw during conflict. That's why they get the name avoidant, right? They're avoiding any kind of intense situation that they don't feel sort of comfortable hanging with. Number 5, you feel relief after breakups, followed by delayed grief. Guys, this is a massive one for me. I always feel so good once I break up, and then I feel bad about it later. Next, you crave independence, but you feel secretly lonely. I think this is number 8. You prefer situationships over commitment. I know I do, but I'm working on it. 9, you feel bored with secure partners. You the secure partner is the gold standard. And if you're bored with them, that says a lot more about you. You can't just say, I'm picky. You're literally giving up diamonds to go out with trash. You idolize exes after distance, not during the closeness. You actually see them as something better once you're gone. And then you value logic over emotional expression. You avoid asking for help even when you're overwhelmed. Uh-uh. Not a good thing, guys. I know you think it is. You pride yourself on being low need. Now, okay, look. It's okay not to need all of the other people to help you for everything, right? But if you have more than 5 of those statements, right? And again, it's not a diagnosis, it's just a pattern, right? And patterns can be rewritten. But if you have more than 5, it's really possible that you are leaning at least towards the avoidant style. And if you've got all of them, you are full-blown avoidant as far as I'm concerned. Now, later in this episode, I'm going to walk you through a step-by-step secure reconditioning framework, right? It's used in a modern attachment-based therapy, and quite frankly, it's grounded in my stuff, the ethical masculinity blueprint, the ACR. But first, right, we need to understand why this avoidance style even exists in the first place. I mean, what happened? Why are we like this? Or at least somewhat like this? Huh? All right, let's strip away the judgment, right? Let's get rid of all the judgment, right? All the TikTok nonsense. Look, avoidant attachment isn't a personality flaw. It's not a sign that you're cold. It is a brilliant, highly sophisticated survival adaptation that simply outlived the environment it was built for. Here we go again with evolution, right? Avoidant attachment forms when a child's brain receives a consistent message, right? And that message is your emotions are an inconvenience and no one is coming to help you manage them. Now, when a child's distress isn't met with comfort, it's not met with attunement or safety, right? The nervous system makes an executive decision. Fine, I'll do it myself. This typically comes from, environments where caregivers were ghosts. Caregivers were unavailable. They were physically present in most of these cases, right? It's not like these are abusive situations. It's not neglect, but they're emotionally elsewhere. They're distracted by stress. Maybe they're getting a divorce or work, right? Maybe they lose a job. Maybe they're dealing with their own unhealed trauma. You've also got, you know, this idea that vulnerability was a liability. You were rewarded for being a big boy, right? Or being low maintenance, but dismissed or shamed if you actually showed any fear, sadness, if you actually asked for help, or you acted needy or needed validation in any way. And so you basically decided to do a DIY childhood, right? I mean, you were expected to figure out the world alone. I mean, this turned you into a miniature adult before you even hit double digits, my dudes. And what the result is that the child adapts with hyper competence. They become masters of self reliance. I mean, emotional suppression, minimizing their own needs so that they never have to risk the pain of an unmet expectation. And here's the trap: the adult nervous system is still running that 5-year old's survival program. In your relationships today, you aren't avoiding her. You're protecting that kid who learned that closeness is a precursor to disappointment. I mean, you are the armor that is protecting that little inborn child, right? That inner child. And I mean, guys, you shouldn't be ashamed of this. This is not something that is a flaw. This is something that was developed over time. And again, it was a survival mechanism at one point. Now, guys, I'm going to get kind of personal here, but the reason that I know this architecture so well is because I've lived in it. I mean, people see the confidence, right? And they see the ethical masculinity now, right? Because I've worked on this stuff. But you don't see the kid who had to build his own fortress just to survive the night. And my parents love me. I mean, I know that for a fact. They love me. I felt their love. I want to be clear about that. But I grew up as a ghost in the machine. I mean, that's just the way it was when I was a kid. By 5 years old, I was already running the neighborhood. I mean, every kid in the neighborhood was coming to my house, and I was like 10 years younger than those pieces. I mean, guys, I was running around miles from home. I mean, I'd be walking to the store by myself with a bag of coins so I could buy a bag of candy, right? I was the kid trick or treating till like 11 p.m. in the dark by myself, navigating the world alone while other kids were being driven around or tucked in. Right? I was hyper independent. When I got home from school, total silence. Even when my parents were in the house, which, that wasn't common, they were working, but I was in a world unto myself. I mean, my sister had already checked out, right? I was in my room with the door shut. I was playing with the GI Joe guys, or I was hanging outside. Imagining I was slaying dragons and stuff like this, practicing with the throwing stars that I had bought from one of those old school ninja magazines. I mean, how is a 7-year-old kid getting a ninja magazine and then getting throwing stars? I mean, I remember when one of my friends threw that thing and it stuck right into my head. It was worth the cost. I mean, look, guys, I remember consuming movies that were like way too mature for me, right? I'm watching that movie about gangs, the Warriors, which that's one of my favorite movies, by the way, of all time. But I was watching that at, like to the age of 5. Heavy adult themes here, right? And I mean, like, I had to process all these sort of like complex adult emotions entirely alone, right? My parents weren't watching Logan's Run with me, although my grandma didn't. She was in a wheelchair and we'd just sit there and watch these totally inappropriate movies, right? And then the floor drops out, right? My sister runs away to join the carnival. No joke. My mother's loving, right? She was loving, but her presence was a moving target. I mean, she was battling her own depression, right? She'd gotten in a car wreck that led her to take pain pills, right? Opioids, and it really created an addiction. I mean, she was there without being there. I mean, she loved me, but she just couldn't process a child's emotions like that. She tried her best. She tried her best. And then, I turned 8 years old, and my world at the time was shattered. And even though I was doing everything on my own, now is for real. All right. The divorce happened. My father moved out, and suddenly, he was a summer only figure. We moved to California, right? And then, I mean, luckily he came too, but I mean, this was a nightmare. And I didn't just become independent, I became hyper independent. I mean, I developed this ironclad chip on my shoulder that basically said, I don't need anyone because no one's coming. Not a good way to grow up. I mean, this is the root of the avoidant energy, right? It's not a diagnosis. It's a biological survival pattern. I mean, when your needs are met inconsistently, you stop looking outward for safety and you lock the door from the inside. Now, this is where the story takes a turn because this is where ethical masculinity comes in. For years, I wore that lone wolf badge like a crown. I was on the edge of going into the red pill dork crowd, right? I thought being able to walk away from anyone was my greatest strength. I was wrong. That wasn't strength. It was a defense mechanism. I was defending myself against all those things that happened in my childhood. Now, ethical masculinity, this program and concept that I've developed is the process of taking that hyper independence and turning it into a sovereign strength. It is a shift from withdrawal to presence. As a kid, I hid in my room to slay dragons, right? As an ethically masculine man, I stay in the room where the dragons show up in my relationships. I don't need to retreat, and I don't retreat into silence anymore. I anchor the space. And it's not always easy because there's a shift from neediness to leadership that's difficult. I used to brag that I had no needs, right? I didn't need anyone. But a man with no needs, they don't have a direction. Ethical masculinity taught me to have a mission and to invite an eminently feminine woman into that mission without being terrified that her presence would invade my space. I mean, I was able to have a successful 20-year marriage, guys. I had to have some type of shift from the chip on my shoulder to the ethical foundation that I do have now. That chip on my shoulder was a heavyweight, you know, always feeling like the world was out to get me and I couldn't trust it. This causes paranoia. This causes outright hostility sometimes, right? I had to put it down so I could actually build a foundation of ethical masculinity, autonomy, competence, right? My hyper independence was a shield that saved my life as a kid. It really did. But as a man, it became a ceiling that I couldn't break through. Guys, you cannot lead a woman. You cannot lead a family. You cannot build that empire that I want you to build if you're always keeping one foot out the door, ready to retreat back to your room to slay those dragons. True power isn't the ability to stay alone. It's the capacity to stay regulated, present, and dangerous while being completely and deeply connected. Guys, there's this thing called the lone wolf trap, right? And it really explains why a lot of men confuse avoidance with alpha behavior and why being, able to leave is actually less powerful than being able to lead. Guys, we don't want alphas. We want ethically masculine men who can lead, right? Because early isolation forces a man to create his own masculine archetypes, right? Archetypes. And often this is through the media and combat and because a living model is often absent, right? Maybe the father's gone or, working all the time or something. And so these guys, they start listening to these podcasts with these other dorks yelling about how they hate women, how you have to treat them like crap in order to get them. And so they build this image of this alpha, right? And they think, wow, this is like what I want to be. But guys, you cannot be consumed by this kind of stuff. I get why you're doing it. But guys, you have to recognize the real reason that you're doing it, right? Because you're scared. You're insecure. Let's fix that instead of yelling at the women. Guys, from a brain perspective, right? What's going on in the old noggin up here? Avoidance showed things like reduced activation in the anterior cingulate cortex. Guys, this is where you process emotional pain. If you, so clearly the pain isn't hurting that much. Well, look, your brain has changed because of those early experiences, but we can change that. We can change it so you can feel the pain. I'm not sure if that's a good thing. It's a good thing. They show increased reliance on the prefrontal cortex, right? Logic over feeling, suppressing their needs for emotion. They have heightened amygdala reactivity though, right? So there's a lot of emotional stuff going on here, right? And it's fear during intimacy, not danger. So instead of feeling like a saber-toothed tiger's chasing you down, you're worried that you're going to be locked in with little Susie for the long haul. And little Susie's pretty hot, baby. Look, the translation is this: closeness triggers the same neural alarm systems as threat used to. And threat still does. I mean, avoidants don't feel unsafe in chaos. They feel unsafe in connection. And this is why. They've learned that avoiding conflict and walking away, distance, it feels more calming. Right? Their nervous system is actually in a good place when they're gone. They have basically conditioned themselves, right? Guys, they feel like emotional conversations are super draining. And the reason is because love feels intrusive to them. They're not used to healthy love, right? They've built a system that looks like, like there needs to be a detachment in some way, right? And so independence feels very regulating for them, right? This is where they should be in their mind. This is where it feels right. And so what they do is they regulate away from people, not towards them. And this is one of the reasons that it's very difficult to lock an avoidant down into a relationship. I mean, it just is. They take their time in the beginning, and then they take their time during, and then they probably run away. Now, if they're healed or if they're healing, they'll stay, but it will be difficult because modern culture, let's be honest, they reward the avoidant traits. You've got hustle, right? These people are always on the go. They're working on their careers, they're building their website, they're building their business, they're coaching people up, they're doing whatever they do. They're highly independent, and society loves that. I mean, we've been told since we were a little kid, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, kids. And if you're a guy, never ask for help, right? Society rewards emotional minimalism in men. The whole I don't need anyone, right? I can't show my emotions because I'm a tough guy. Men don't cry. Yeah, men cry. We just do it alone and in pain. And you do it, boys, and it's okay. They reward non-attachment, and they confuse this for enlightenment, right? Look, it's good to be detached from the outcome, but not the process or the people involved. Just don't worry about what happens in the end. I mean, guys, society loves these guys because most of them, they excel professionally. I mean, these are the workaholics, right? They're in there constantly. They're doing their stuff. I mean, my goodness. They appear confident, right? They seem unbothered. They attract anxious partners pretty effortlessly. I mean, I got to be honest. Most of the chicks that I've attracted in life are the anxious partner types. That ain't fun. In fact, that whole cycle, I thought it was fun in the beginning. It is not. That push pull garbage, I don't want anything else to do with that. That is horrible. But the reason that these anxious partners interpret avoidance as high value, right, is because what's really happening is what I talked about a few minutes ago, right? This cycle of conditioning, intermittent reinforcement. I talk about it all the time, right? What happens with the avoidant and the anxious partner, right? The distance creates obsession, right? And then the avoidant comes back, and then they pull away, right? And this anxious avoidant pairing, it feels electric, right? It's push pull, it's exciting, it's hot, it's a little tension, it's a lot of tension, right? But then it ends up blowing up. It's a total disaster. These are not a good pairing. And there's a hidden tax, man. I mean, the avoidants really, they have a higher risk for mental disorder, right? Because the avoidant man really is a master of suppressing their emotions, right? He often thinks that he's winning at life because he doesn't feel the sting of emotional chaos. But physics tells us that energy can't be destroyed. It can only be displaced. If in the avoidant nervous system, right? That emotional energy is driven downward into the body and outward into compulsive behaviors. You aren't over the pain. You've just relocated it into your shadow. Research and clinical data show that avoidant attachment correlates with a specific set of extremely high performance malfunctions. I know you never heard those words together, high performance malfunctions. So, number one, they've got this thing called masked depression. Avoidants rarely show the typical signs of lethargy. They're not tired, right? Instead, their depression manifests as icy numbness, a loss of color in life, and a cynical worldview that they mistake for realism. I'm not pessimistic, I'm just realistic. Yeah, okay. There's also structural dissociation. And this is where checking out during conflict, right? This is where you check out during conflict. When things get heavy, the avoidant, they literally leave their body. I mean, he's looking at you, but he's gone, right? He's retreated into a mental bunker where he can't be touched anymore, right? He can't be hurt anymore. He's probably replaying, that episode of The Warriors. Now, there's also substance use and process addictions. Because they refuse to rely on other people for regulation, avoidance turn to things, right? A glass of bourbon every night, the compulsive scrolling on the phone, right? The porn addiction. Yeah, go back and watch that episode. Guys, these aren't just vices, they're solo attempts to regulate a lonely nervous system. These people become workaholics, right? The office is the perfect avoidant sanctuary. It provides a sense of competence, right? And status, stuff that, we want without the messy requirement of intimacy. If you're busy, you have a socially acceptable excuse to stay distant. I know I've used it before. Guys, they have a lot more somatic stress disorders, right? Since the mind won't speak the pain, the body does. This manifests as chronic back pain, unexplained digestive issues, and cardiovascular strain. It's not good for your heart, guys. You're literally carrying the weight of your unexpressed life in your body, and it is killing you. Guys, the avoidant ends up with a lot more midlife loneliness, right? Avoidants don't feel the cost of their isolation in their 20s because society's rewarding them, telling, you're a Chad, you're a bro. They feel it when they hit 45. They look around and they see that they've built a kingdom, but there's no one in the throne room with them. They are alone. I mean, this is why a lot of these rich guys who have spent all their time and effort on their business, right? They look up one day and they feel so unsatisfied with life because money doesn't do it, boys. Purpose and direction does, strength, ethical masculinity, but it needs to be grounded with other people. Now, avoidants don't feel their pain in real time like anxious types do. They are the slow burn tragedy, right? They feel it later in the silence of a big house, in the sudden burnout that hits like a freight train, and in the realization that they've become a stranger to the people who were supposed to be closest to them, including their kids, their spouse sometimes, right? I mean, ethical masculinity, boys, fire starters, it is the intervention. I know that you're sick of hearing me say this, but you shouldn't be. It's the choice to feel the small pains now so you don't have to face a total collapse later. And if you're one of my young fire starters, right, you're in your early 20s, I'm telling you right now, guys, the society is building you up and setting you up to fail emotionally. You are going to be lonely in your 40s unless you get my blueprint, baby. Come on now. All right, guys, let's debunk this idea that not feeling anything is a sign of strength. And we need to look at it as the biological debt that will eventually be collected because your body is keeping the score. And this is right from Vanderkolk. Men who pride themselves on being unshakable, they're often the ones with the worst stomach aches, some anxiety at night, right? They think that they're in high functioning isolation because they're being rewarded by society, right? Independence, work ethic. But they ignore the psychological decay happening beneath the surface. And this is why you see a lot of avoidance in therapy. This is why you see a lot of avoidance in mental institutions that, because they avoided therapy. We need people, guys. Guys, let's look at it from this perspective, the Buddhist monk perspective, detachment versus avoidance, okay? Because this is critical, I think, and this, I think, will help me maybe clear it up a bit. Avoidance is not detachment. It is not. Avoidance equals emotional shutdown, all right? Now, the Buddhists, right, Buddhist philosophy, with about emotional presence, but without clinging, without trying to hold on. I mean, true detachment says, I can feel deeply without losing myself, right? And that's what we're trying to teach you here. How to care without losing yourself. Because the avoidants say, I must not feel or I'll lose control. But here's what we teach with ethical masculinity. We teach you emotional regulation, right? Renaming some of those feelings and then calmly dealing with them. Guys, we love boundaries here at Plant the Spark. Boundaries without withdrawal, though. You don't need to run away. So what you say is, hey, honey, I need 10, 15 minutes, and then I'll try to come back and we can talk, right? It's been a rough day. Guys, I teach you how to have strength and competence, autonomy, and some relatedness without numbness. It's not about being emotionally vacant. It's about being so emotionally fulfilled that you can lead with passion and balance and safety. All right. So here's the part you've all been waiting for. But this is how to rewire the avoidant attachment. And I'm going to give you the step by step process. This is therapy informed, right? Therapy informed. Again, I'm not a therapist, so I'm not going to tell you that this is going to be a cure all or anything, but it's therapy informed. This is not the YouTube nonsense that you're hearing about on the other channels, right? Step one, somatic awareness. Learn to feel sensations without fleeing, right? And what does this mean? When you've got that tight chest, right? When you feel the heat sort of like, starting to boil up, right, in the old body, you usually feel an urge to do what? Escape. We're not escaping Jack, right? We are staying. We are leaning back. We are doing our breathing exercises, the 4-4-4, right? Or the 4-6-4. And then we're labeling what we're feeling for what it is. We're not running away. Step two, micro vulnerability. Guys, this is massive. You have to practice to get better at things. Practice low stakes emotional sharing. I mean, it's simple. You could say something like, hey, look, I'm uncomfortable right now, but I'm staying, right? You don't need to dump. You don't need to over explain. Just be there. It's not that threatening, guys. Just be there. Listen if you need to. Step three, repair tolerance. Avoidance fleet conflict, right? Secure people repair. Stay in conversations 10% longer than comfortable. Practice. You're basically rewiring your nervous system to feel, comfortable and relaxed in these situations now instead of freaking out and feeling anxiety filled. Step four, rewrite your beliefs. I want you to replace stuff like needing as a weakness with connection is a skill, not dependency. Because it is, boys. I mean, we always hear, the most successful people in life, they're the ones with the most connections, the real deep connections, not frivolous garbage. Step five, embodied leadership. Guys, this is what ethical masculinity is all about. I mean, we build nervous system capacity over on this piece. I mean, you go over to www.plantthespark.com and I've got manuals for all this stuff. Emotional steadiness. That's what we're building. We are building emotional steadiness. And yeah, we're doing it in the frame of, increasing your dating potential, making you more attractive, baby. We teach containment without control, right? How to be in a relationship and how to contain and keep yourself without having to control other people or the entire situation. Guys, with ethical masculinity, you're not going to lose your independence. You're just going to gain some depth. I'm telling you, this stuff works. And here's the exact quote from one of my clients. All right, hold on. It says, I didn't realize I was avoidant until your checklist punched me in the chest. I thought I was just logical. I was actually terrified of intimacy. I mean, guys, this is a man who followed the manual. That's all he did. We didn't get together for coaching sessions, unless you consider my manuals coaching sessions because I did write them. Guys, this is just from going through the ethical masculinity blueprint, right? That's it. What were some of the things that were in the manual that he followed? Well, number one, he regulated instead of ghosting, right? He stayed instead of withdrawing, right? He led emotionally instead of fleeing the situation. And guys, the best news is his relationship was saved. I mean, his partner reconnected, not because he chased, because he didn't, but because he became present in the situations, right? He didn't get her back. This is right from him. He didn't get her back. He got himself back. She chose him again because he finally showed up. That's beautiful. And that's a success story that I love. I love this stuff. I love watching you guys succeed because I know how hard it is, boys. Come on now. I know how hard it is. All right, look, avoidance doesn't make you broken. It means you survived something quietly. But survival isn't the same as living, dudes. It's just not. Now, if you're ready to build, all right, if you're ready to build emotional strength, if you're ready to build that secure attachment that is seen as the unicorn in the dating sphere, right? And quite frankly, it is the unicorn in life because it's so hard to freaking develop. But the good news is, boys, you can develop this. Are you ready for ethical masculinity? I mean, are you? If you are, you can go over to plantthispark.com and get the ethical masculinity blueprint, right? The ACR method. Guys, if nothing else, look, I don't need your money. I don't. I love it because this is how I make my living. But if nothing else, just subscribe to the channel and watch more videos like this that will help you in your life. Share it with someone who hides behind independence, man. I'm Mike, your dating and relationship coach. I'm here for you guys. I'm here for you ladies. The secure attachment isn't soft. It is the strongest nervous system in the room. And here at Plant the Spark, that is exactly what we're moving toward. I'll see you later, boys.